It is just not the case that the reason for the plight of the black community is because people were not lending money to them. It's just not true.
That's not true. But hold on 1 second, Charlamagne. But so
what's not true?
You're bringing back facts of 1965, right? Let's talk 2023, right?
I said 1995.
1995. We'll talk 2023, right? My son will be successful in real estate and successful in buying a house. You know why? Because his father owns his house.
Because
his father owns a house, right? But my father
because of you and the drive. Because of you and the drive you put into
did
him.
not own houses.
Because of you and the drive you put into him.
If we're not going to have a conversation,
you're not even appreciating what you've done to your son.
I'm just asking you a question. I just let you speak and I'll let you talk.
Okay.
I can talk.
We have a conversation.
Fast Zone News here, back with more breaking news, and today we're going to be checking out part 2 of Larry Elder destroying Charlamagne the God. As I'm sure you're aware, Larry went on the Breakfast Club this week and had an extremely heated debate with basically the entire staff. The interviewers seemed to only want to talk about their hatred for white people for basically the entire interview and refused to take any accountability for their community. Larry had a response for basically every attack they threw his way, and I wish more people had the backbone to stand up to the unhinged left. He didn't hold back on any of his answers in this interview, so if you're a sensitive liberal, consider yourself warned.
These are the kinds of qualities that make people successful.
You can't blame everything on having a fatherless family, right? Because
I didn't say blaming everything.
I know, but that's what you're saying. You're saying a strong community. But
no, you said that's what I just said. I didn't say that.
You talk about the Asian community. Asian community, it's easy for them to get loans for entrepreneurships. It's easy for them to get loans for houses. You look at our community.
Okay.
If you really want to talk about our community, right? You look at the schools in our community. Some of our schools are the worst, right? Would you agree with that? Yes or no?
Absolutely. Which
right?
is why.
Don't have education.
So I guess that's white people's fault as well. Bad schools. It's like everything, no matter what, is the white people's fault. That's the theme you'll get from this. So just check it out.
Which is why one of the reasons I'm running for president is for school choice.
Also, would you say that is in our community is
systemic?
It's also in our communities heavy food deserts. There's nothing but fast food places that are just killing and destroying that. Would you say that's true?
Systemic too.
Boy,
would you say that's true? I'm just asking a question.
You said a number of things. I just addressed one.
Larry's like, wow, this is a lot of victim mentality. Let me just start to unpack this here.
One of them about loans. In 1965, Barack Obama, who was in private practice, joined a bunch of other lawyers to file a class action lawsuit against Citicorp, which is headquartered here in New York. 186 black people were applying for loans for mortgages and didn't get them. And they accused Citicorp of engaging in racism. Mm-hmm. Citicorp said, no, it's not racism. You have poor credit scores, and we want to make sure we get our money back. Obama joined a bunch of other lawyers, and they sued Citicorp in a class action lawsuit. And Citicorp said, okay, to hell with it. Gave them all loans. And they followed them all up. Daily Caller did a few years later. Almost all of them lost their homes. Several of them filed for bankruptcy. One of them even said, when you don't qualify for a loan, maybe we shouldn't get a loan. Well, duh. It wasn't true that black people were not getting loans. Plus, there are all sorts of black-owned community banks around the country, and it turns out the turn-down rate when you apply for a loan at a community bank was even higher because they had less capital and they couldn't afford to loan money to risky people.
So let me just stop right here, and I apologize. I sold cars for 6 years, and let me tell you how it works. I'm sure it's the same process for a home loan. They don't look at your race when you buy a home or buy a car. You simply fill out a credit app, you put your name, address, where you work, how much you make, and how long you've worked there, and you sign at the bottom, and you submit it. At no point does the application ask race. So for him to try to say that it's systematic racism, that black people are not getting loans, is simply not true. The banks, they just look at your credit score. There's 3 credit scores. When you submit it, they look at the credit, and that's what they make the determination on. Race isn't even a part of the conversation, and the fact that they're saying that it is shows how uneducated they are on the system. And it's unfortunate because these people are making these big arguments, and they don't even know what they're talking about. It's crazy.
It is just not the case that the reason for the plight of the black community is because people were not lending money to them. It's just not true.
That's not true. But hold on 1 second, Charlamagne.
Oh, here we go.
What's not true?
You're bringing back facts of 1965, right? Let's talk 2023, right?
I said 1995.
1995. We'll talk 2023, right? My son will be successful in real estate and successful in buying a house. You know why? Because his father owns his house. Because his father owns a house, right? But my father
because of you and the drive you put into him.
Did not own houses.
Because of you and the drive you put into him.
We're not going to have a conversation.
You're not even appreciating what you've done to your son.
I'm just asking you a question. I just let you speak and I'll let you talk.
Okay.
I can talk.
We have a conversation.
All right.
When we talk about it, right, it's harder for our community to get loans, right? And not just because of poor credit scores. It's because of where the areas are. You talked about the Asian community. A lot of the Asian community community have their own banks and they're able to process and get their own banks. There's not too many.
That in itself is a racist comment. A lot of Asians have their own banks and they can just call their own people and get loans. Like, dude, where are you getting that from? Show me some statistics that Asians own all the banks. I don't think that's true, Mr. DJ Envy. And I wish this one, he's like the worst because he sits there in the back, like, and he doesn't really know anything. And then he just came out of nowhere and he's just spouting misinformation. Asians have lots of banks so they can get loans. Show me some statistics, Mr. Envy.
Many African-American branches that are able to give out money. So that's one. Then let's talk about getting grants for schools. They're not even giving grants for schools at the rate that they're giving grants for white people. And let's talk about when...
That's because it's unfortunately not graduating at the same rate. And I believe they're going out of their way with the affirmative action, which thankfully they just shot down. They were going out of their way to let black people into college, even though they were lesser grades and SAT scores. How is that not racist?
When they talk about entrepreneurship, they are giving so much money to these white and Asian kids and Asian people doing it, and a 1,000 times less than our community. Will you agree to any of that?
No, I don't. I don't agree with virtually any of what you just now said. The turn down rate for a white applicant for a mortgage is higher than the turn down rate for a Japanese or a Chinese applicant for a mortgage. Now, are you telling me that banks are discriminating against white and in favor of Asian Americans? It's because their credit scores are better. They often live below their means. They save more, even when they're making the same amount of money than black people do. If you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. Period. End of statement. Even the head of Urban League, a black man once said that. If you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. End of statement.
Sir,
yes.
Let's just when you were talking about crime, you weren't prepared to talk about disproportion. You talked about how it was more black people that was doing it, and then you talked about how we're the smaller, of the population. The same applies also to the loans. It's more white people than it is black people. God. You seem to pick and choose.
I'm talking about the rate.
What?
I'm talking about the rate.
Whatever it is, the bottom line is it's more white people than it is black people.
Bottom line is white people are the problem.
More black people are not getting loans disproportionately. It seems you only want to apply the disproportion.
Dude. It's the same thing. There's not as many loans going to the black and minority community because, I guess they're talking about the black community because the credit scores are not high enough to get the loans. It's the same thing with schools. The scores are not high enough to get the grants. And you can't blame that on white people. It's simply not anybody's fault. Everyone needs to just take accountability for themselves. And that's really the solution to really everything in this country, accountability.
To the conversation when it benefits your
talking point. I'm not sure you understood.
Which is why they said.
I'm not sure you understood. I'm not sure you understood my point. That's why I mentioned in 1995 when 186 black people who were not getting loans filed a class action lawsuit claiming that they were denied the loan because of racism. Citicorp said, okay, here are your loans. The reason I wasn't giving you the loans is because we're afraid you weren't going to be able to pay them back.
I'm not talking about
Fast forward, they weren't able to pay them back, which proved the Citicorp point.
I'm not talking about
I know you're not, because inconvenient.
I'm talking about your response to Envy when you said more white people get approved for loans.
Since you like numbers, Washington Post said black Americans have the highest denial rates for purchase and refinance of loans, according to Home Mortgage Disclosures Act.
Because of their credit score.
All credit scores are the same. 15% of Hispanic loan applicants were denied, compared with about 11% of white and 10% of Asian applicants with same credit scores. And that's Washington Post, since you love numbers so much.
So what's the black percentage? He didn't even say it. He just said they're the lowest, and then he said every race but the black community. What was their percentage, dude?
No, you do love numbers. That's coming from the Washington Post. That's 2023, not 1995.
I can show you a study that says the opposite.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Elder. Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and I'm pretty sure everybody who just caught a RICO with him in Georgia, they all had fathers, and they still ended up in jail. How did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Nobody said if you have a father, you won't go to jail. Nobody said if you didn't have a father, you were going to jail. My father never.
But guess what you did say, Mr. Elder? I'm sorry, respectfully.
May I answer his question?
Guess what you did say?
May I answer his question?
Let him finish his statement, Ted.
Okay.
My father never knew his biological father. He got thrown out of the house when he was 13 years old. 8th grade dropout, Jim Crow South, Athens, Georgia. Fast forward, my dad cleaned toilets, 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets when I was growing up. Went to night school to get his GED, and then after that, he went to night school to learn how to operate a small restaurant. Age of 47, my dad saves his nickels and dimes from his job, starts a small restaurant near downtown L.A. Fast forward, he retires in his 80s. He owned that restaurant. He owned property next door, plus the house that's still in our family. not too shabby for somebody who did not know his biological father. It's not a death sentence. You still have choices. It's just much more difficult to raise a child on your own. Even Tupac Shakur said, "I know for a fact." Tupac, excuse me. I know for a fact. Had I had a father, I would have been more confident. I would have been more disciplined. End of quote.
Well, how did all those white men end up in jail when they still had fathers? The Trumps and the Giuliani. I'm just asking a question. How did they end up in jail?
Because some people commit crimes.
No, sir. Stop. My apologies for interrupting you earlier. I just couldn't stomach the answer that I knew you were going to say.
Couldn't stomach the answer?
Yeah, I couldn't stomach, because your actual answer to Trump being what was happening to him with the indictments, you actually said that the system was doing it. You said there was a two-tier system. This is your words.
That's right.
That it was a two-tier system. So when it came to Trump, all of a sudden you now believe in this systematic thing that's happening to Trump. But then when it happens to black people,
but it's not about race.
Right.
It's not about race.
I didn't ask you that. I asked you. Remember I made it easy for you, and I took race out of it. Remember I said
it literally has nothing to do with race what he's talking about. They're talking about systematic racism. He's talking about people at the Capitol getting arrested, and she's like, they're the same thing. It's like, you are so lost. She's just so lost this entire time.
I'm just talking about the system.
But continues to try and sound like smart, and she thinks she's like getting him and like stumping him, and it's like, no, you don't even know what's going on in the conversation. He's literally laughing at her every time she talks.
I'm just talking about the system.
If you want to ask me whether I believe Donald Trump is being treated the same way as Joe Biden and is being treated the same way as Hillary Clinton, all of these people are white. All these people are white. There's a double standard.
Well, you
Mr. Elder, you didn't hear my question.
You said that
you didn't hear my question.
You said some people commit crimes, so you do believe that Trump, Giuliani, they committed a crime.
I don't know.
But you just said some people commit crimes.
I said some people committed a crime. I didn't say Donald Trump committed a crime. If you ask me specifically whether I believe Donald Trump committed a crime, I don't.
I don't. Specifically about those people and why they ended up in jail, and they all got fathers.
Well, Donald Trump is not in jail.
Oh, he got indicted.
Yeah, he got indicted. That's a far cry from being in jail.
Why did he get indicted?
Well, he got arrested, is what I'm saying. He's going to get arrested.
He's been arrested. He got indicted, in my opinion, because the DOJ has a double standard. They let Hillary pass, for example. She clearly violated the Espionage Act by having an unsecured server in her basement. She paid for the Steele dossier. She destroyed 30,000 emails that were under subpoena.
So was it the system? It's like, can I get some earplugs, please? Or is there anybody around that can get me some earplugs, please? Or please mute her mic, because she is annoying.
And she got a wrist slap. And Donald Trump is now being indicted, I think, for the fourth time. It's unfair.
Right.
Black people been telling y'all how corrupt the FBI is for a long time.
The system.
And the FBI has been corrupt. There was COINTEL. The FBI. J. Edgar Hoover also wiretapped MLK under Robert Kennedy, a Democrat Attorney General, Malcolm X. Lots of things. Right. And I find it interesting how the same people who criticize the FBI historically are now defending the FBI because they're going after Donald Trump.
Oh, we're not defending the FBI.
I didn't say you were. I said some of the same people.
We're just looking and saying, damn, finally.
That's going to wrap up this unhinged clip, and as you can see, they're all extremely uninformed. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think America's systemically racist, or do you think it's total bullshit? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you guys. And as always, I want to thank all my viewers and all my new subscribers. And if you're not already subscribed, hit the button below to gain access to the latest news and content 7 days a week. And this has been another edition of Fast Zone News. Peace out.